A trembling lion cub clings to the edge of a cliff. The river roars below. The mother lioness cries helplessly. Suddenly, a small elephant steps into the storm. Sometimes heroes don't look like what we expect. In the vast African wilderness, where survival rules every heartbeat, compassion was about to write its own story. A story where a tiny elephant did what even the mighty couldn't. The African sun rose over endless fields of golden grass. The savannah shimmered, alive with the hum of cicadas and distant calls of wild herds. Near the cliffs that overlooked a rushing river, a lioness walked proudly beside her newborn cub, her first and only child. The cub stumbled, curious about everything: the sound of water, the glint of light on stone, the flutter of birds that danced above. The lioness watched closely, protective yet gentle, her eyes filled with pride. But fate moves faster than even a mother's instinct. As the cub reached the cliff's edge, the earth beneath its paws crumbled. Pebbles rolled. The lioness lunged, but too late. The cub slipped. A shrill cry tore through the savannah as the tiny body tumbled down the rocky slope toward the raging river below. The lioness roared, a sound that made the ground tremble. She ran along the edge, eyes wide with terror, heart pounding like thunder. But there was no path down, only steep rocks and merciless water. The cub landed near the edge of the river, weak and trembling, its paws clawing at slippery stones. The current roared, pulling closer with each second. Above, the lioness could do nothing but roar into the wind, her voice filled with helpless agony. The river wasn't kind. It was wild and alive, swollen from the last storm, dragging branches and mud through its furious current. The cub tried to crawl away, but every move brought it closer to the water. On the high rocks, the lioness paced, desperate. Her golden eye searched for a way anyway to reach her child. But nature was cruelly silent. Her cries echoed across the valley, unanswered. Just as hope began to fade, the ground trembled softly. The air shifted. From the nearby grassland, a small elephant calf emerged, curious, cautious, yet fearless. Its tusks were barely visible, its ears flapping as it listened to the cries of distress. The elephant calf saw the cub below, weak, wet, crying. And though the lioness's roar echoed like thunder, the little elephant didn't run. Instead, it stepped closer to the edge, its dark eyes filled with something rare: concern. Animals don't think the way humans do, but they feel. In that moment, one heart recognized another in pain. The lioness saw the elephant and froze. Her instincts screamed danger. Elephants and lions had never been friends. But desperation silenced fear. She stood still, watching. The elephant calf moved slowly down the slope, careful with each step on the wet stones. The river hissed and splashed around its legs, cold and forceful. But it didn't stop. Inch by inch, it waded deeper, eyes locked on the struggling cub. At the riverbank, the cub cried weakly, too small to understand the danger or the miracle that was coming. The young elephant stretched its trunk forward. The water roared, waves crashing against its knees, but it leaned further, fighting the pull of the current. The cub reached out a paw, trembling, and for a brief second, their worlds met. Predator and prey. Bound not by fear, but by something far greater. Then, gently, impossibly gently, the elephant's trunk wrapped around the tiny cub. The lioness held her breath. Time itself seemed to stop. The elephant lifted the cub slowly, carefully, as water sprayed around them like shards of glass. The cub hung limp but safe, eyes wide in disbelief. The young elephant turned toward the shore, carrying the cub above the waves. When it finally reached the rocks, the elephant set the cub down, not with the strength of a beast, but the tenderness of a guardian. The cub gasped, shook off the water, and blinked at the light. The lioness roared once more, this time not in fear, but in pure relief. She leapt down from a lower ledge, landing near her cub. For a moment, the great lioness and the small elephant stood face to face. No words, no sounds. Just a shared silence, heavy, sacred, eternal. The lioness lowered her head slightly, a gesture so subtle it almost went unseen. Gratitude. The elephant blinked, its trunk lifting softly as if returning the gesture. And just like that, two souls who were never meant to meet understood each other perfectly. The sun dipped low, painting the savannah in gold and amber. The lioness and her cub rested on the warm rocks. The cub nuzzled close to her chest, safe again. Nearby, the elephant calf stood at the river's edge, watching the current calm as the storm of fate finally passed. Nature is full of battles, predator and prey, hunter and hunted. But that day, something greater than instinct spoke louder. Compassion. Because in the wild, survival is everything, yet here, a creature chose empathy over fear. A choice no one expected, but one everyone could feel. The elephant turned slowly, walking back toward its herd in the distance. The cub watched it go, eyes wide and curious, as if it already understood the meaning of that silent goodbye. The lioness looked after the elephant one last time. Her eyes softened. Her tail swayed gently. Then, with the cub beside her, she turned toward the horizon, carrying not just her child, but a new truth. In that endless savannah, under that boundless sky, a bond was formed. Not of blood, not of species, but of heart. In a world that often forgets kindness, nature still remembers. If a lion and an elephant can show compassion, what's stopping us? Like, share, and subscribe, and help spread the message that kindness knows no boundaries. Because sometimes the smallest act of empathy can change an entire world